Have you ever had the feeling that your days are packed from morning to night, yet somehow your life isn't actually moving forward? You wake up early, stay busy, put in the hours, check off tasks, and collapse into bed exhausted. But when you pause and look back over the past year, you struggle to name a single achievement that truly matters to you. Maybe you watch people around you making progress, building careers, reaching milestones, living with purpose, while you feel frozen in the same spot year after year. Or maybe you carry dreams inside you, a better life, more freedom, more meaning. But those dreams never take shape because they remain unspoken, unwritten, unplanned, just loose thoughts drifting through your mind. If you've ever felt like a boat floating endlessly on open water, moving but never arriving anywhere, then this story is meant for you. Because there was once a man who lived exactly like this for years, until a single conversation handed him the compass he had been missing all along. So stay with me until the very end. In a crowded city buzzing with ambition, where it seemed everyone had a destination, there lived a 32-year-old man named Daniel. Daniel worked as a barista at a popular downtown cafe. It was the same position he had held since he was 24. He wasn't lazy. In fact, he was dependable. He arrived on time every shift, handled rush hours calmly, treated customers kindly, and returned home drained each night. To the outside world, Daniel looked disciplined, productive, and responsible. But internally, something felt hollow. Each morning, when his alarm rang, Daniel would lie still, staring up at the ceiling, thinking, "Is this really all there is? Is this what my life is going to be?" He didn't hate his job, but he didn't love his life either. He was trapped in a quiet middle ground, not failing dramatically, but never truly succeeding, just existing. Meanwhile, life around him kept moving. His younger brother, Alex, had already launched his second restaurant before turning 28. A former classmate, Sarah, had published her first book. Even his neighbor, Tom, had climbed Mount Kilimanjaro and gone on to start a nonprofit organization. When people asked Daniel, "So what are you working toward? What are your goals?" he would respond with soft, uncertain phrases. "I want to be successful someday. I'd like to travel more. I want my life to mean something." But these weren't goals. They were wishes, shapeless ideas without deadlines or direction. Daniel had no written plans, no defined targets, no clear destination. He was like a ship with strong sails and a powerful engine, yet no compass, no map, and no port in mind. And so he drifted. One day turned into a week. Weeks became months. Months quietly stacked into years. 8 years passed, and nothing truly changed. Daniel had never understood that a life without clear goals doesn't feel calm or free. It feels restless, unsettling. Because when you have no direction, your days begin to blur together. And when every day feels identical, a dangerous thought slowly creeps in. Am I wasting my time on this planet? That question followed Daniel everywhere. It whispered to him in the quiet moments, especially late at night, when there was nothing left to distract him. Night after night, it refused to leave him alone. Then came one Friday evening that would change everything. Daniel attended his 10-year high school reunion. The event was held in an elegant banquet hall, glowing with warm lights and loud laughter. Former classmates stood in small circles, dressed sharply, confidently exchanging stories about their lives. Daniel stayed near the edge of the room, holding a simple glass of water, mostly listening. "I just became a partner at my law firm. Our startup crossed 2 million in revenue this year. I finished my PhD, and now I'm teaching at the university." Every conversation carried the same message: progress, direction, evidence that the last decade had meant something. Everyone had a milestone. Everyone had a story. Then someone turned toward Daniel and asked the question he had secretly feared all night. "So, Daniel, what have you been up to? What are you working toward these days?" Daniel's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Because the truth was brutal. He had no answer. He muttered something vague about still figuring things out, forced a small smile, and quickly excused himself. He walked straight to the restroom, locked the door, and stood in front of the mirror. Staring back at him was a 32-year-old man who looked far more exhausted than his age suggested. He searched his memory, retracing the last 10 years of his life, and realized something terrifying. He couldn't name a single clear goal he had set and achieved. Not one meaningful target. Not one finish line crossed. The man in the mirror looked confused, lost. older than he should have been. Daniel leaned closer and whispered softly, almost afraid of the answer. Who am I? What am I actually doing with my life? For the first time, there was only silence. That night, Daniel didn't sleep. At 2 a.m., he sat alone at his kitchen table with a blank notebook open in front of him. He told himself this was it, the moment he would finally get his life together. He picked up a pen and tried to write down his goals. Minutes passed. Then an hour. The page remained almost empty. Eventually, he wrote just 3 weak sentences. Get a better job. Save more money. Be happy. He stared at the words and felt a knot form in his chest. He knew deep down that these weren't goals. They were wishes. And wishes without structure, without timelines, without action, are nothing more than fragile dreams that slowly fade away. Daniel closed the notebook, leaned back in his chair, and whispered into the darkness of the room. I can't do this alone anymore. I need help. I don't even know how to set a goal. That was the sentence Daniel kept repeating in his head. But the next morning, something inside him shifted. For the first time in years, instead of avoiding the problem, Daniel chose to face it. He did something completely unfamiliar to him. He asked for help. Daniel suddenly remembered Mr. Harrison, his former high school teacher, the man who had guided countless students who later became doctors, entrepreneurs, writers, and leaders. With hesitation, Daniel sent a short message. I feel completely lost. Can we talk? The reply came almost instantly. Come to my office on Monday at 9 a.m. When Daniel arrived, Mr. Harrison's office felt nothing like a typical workplace. The walls were lined with framed diplomas, handwritten thank you notes, and photographs of former students standing in front of achievements they were proud of. One entire wall was dominated by a massive world map, dotted with dozens of colored pins scattered across continents. On the desk sat a small, antique brass compass, worn smooth by time. Mr. Harrison studied Daniel carefully, his expression calm but deeply observant. You look like a man who's been sailing for a long time, he said gently, but never actually heading anywhere. Daniel blinked. The description hit him harder than expected. He slowly nodded. Mr. Harrison picked up the brass compass and placed it in Daniel's hands. Let me ask you something, he said. If I gave you a ship, a strong ship with perfect sails, enough supplies to last a year, and told you to sail, but I gave you no map, no compass, and no destination, where would you end up? Daniel thought for a moment. I guess I'd just drift, he replied. Maybe I'd end up wherever the ocean pushed me. Mr. Harrison smiled softly. Exactly, he said. And that's what you've been doing with your life. He stood and walked over to the world map, pointing at the scattered pins. Every pin you see here represents a goal I once set and later reached. Not vague ideas, not someday I'll travel, not maybe I'll see Europe, but specific decisions. Like, on June 15th, I will stand beneath the Eiffel Tower. He turned back to Daniel. Goals are not wishes. Goals are destinations, with deadlines. And without them, you're not directing your life. You're simply reacting to whatever happens around you. Harrison returned to his desk, pulled out a blank sheet of paper, and drew 3 large circles on it. There are 3 kinds of goals every person needs, he said. The first is a 1-year goal, something clear and measurable you will achieve within the next 12 months. Not get healthier, but run a 10-kilometer race on October 12th. Not save money, but save $5,000 by December 31st. He tapped the second circle. Next is your 5-year vision. Where do you want your life to be in 5 years? What work are you doing? What skills have you mastered? What kind of life have you built? Be precise. Then he pointed to the third circle. And finally, your 20-year legacy, he said quietly. When you're old and looking back, what do you want to have created? What impact do you want to leave behind? What do you want people to remember you for? Mr. Harrison slid the paper across the desk toward Daniel. I don't want you to leave this office today without filling in all through 3 circles, he said firmly. 1 goal for each, and I want them to be SMART goals. Daniel looked down at the empty page, his heart pounding. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. For the first time in his life, Daniel wasn't drifting anymore. He was about to choose a direction. Yes, Mr. Harrison said, nodding, SMART. He let the words settle in the air. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. He looked Daniel straight in the eyes. Not I want to be successful, but I will launch my own coffee roasting business by January 2026. Not I want to travel, but I will spend 2 weeks in Japan this April and learn basic Japanese before I go. Not I want to be happy, but I will build 3 deep friendships this year by joining a weekly community group. Mr. Harrison leaned forward slightly. Here's what most people never realize, he said quietly. Goals don't trap you, they liberate you. Daniel frowned, listening closely. When you know exactly where you're going, Mr. Harrison continued, you stop burning energy on distractions. You stop reacting to life. You stop drifting, and you start steering. He gestured toward the brass compass still resting in Daniel's hands. That compass belongs to you now, he said, but it's useless unless you choose a destination first. Daniel stayed in that office for nearly 2 hours, filling page after page, crossing things out, rewriting them, sharpening every sentence until it felt real. His 1-year goal became clear. Save $10,000 and complete a professional barista certification by December 31st, specifically to prepare for opening his own coffee shop. His 5-year vision followed. Own and operate a small specialty coffee roasting business with 2 locations, employing 10 people and known for quality, not speed. Then came the longest pause, the 20-year legacy. Finally, he wrote, be remembered as the person who brought real coffee culture to his hometown and helped guide young entrepreneurs who came after him. As Daniel stared at the page, something inside his chest loosened. For the first time in years, these weren't fantasies. They were coordinates. The next morning felt different. Instead of lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, Daniel looked at the goals taped to his wall and asked a new question. What's one small thing I can do today to move closer? That day, he opened a separate savings account labeled Business Fund. He researched barista certification programs during lunch. That night, he read a single chapter from a book on small business management. They were small actions, but now every action pointed somewhere. Week by week, the shift became noticeable. Daniel started waking up at 5:30 a.m., using the quiet hours before work to focus on his future instead of scrolling his phone. He stopped wasting time on endless social media feeds because he finally had something more important to work on. He reached out to 3 local coffee shop owners and asked if he could learn from them. One of them said yes. 2 months in, Daniel faced his first real test. Some old college friends invited him on a pricey weekend getaway. The old version of Daniel wouldn't have hesitated. He would have said yes instantly, even if it meant putting the cost on a credit card. But this time, Daniel paused. He looked at his goal, $10,000 saved by December 31st. He did the math. The trip would cost $800, almost an entire month of savings. For the first time in his life, he made a different choice. I can't come this time, he said. I'm saving for my business. His friends laughed. You're always talking about someday, one of them joked. Live a little. Daniel didn't argue. He didn't explain. He simply smiled and said, this time, someday has a deadline. By the end of the 3rd month, Daniel had saved $2,400. He had completed half of his certification program. His notebook was packed with ideas, supplier names, roasting methods, possible locations. But the biggest change wasn't on paper. It was internal. Daniel no longer felt like life was dragging him along. He no longer felt stuck in the current. For the first time, he wasn't drifting. He was sailing, with a compass in hand and a destination ahead. 6 months later, at another relaxed gathering, the same friend who had once asked, so what are you working toward, ran into Daniel again. This time he paused, looked Daniel up and down, and laughed. Man, he said, you look different, more focused, more alive. Daniel smiled, not proudly, but calmly. I know where I'm headed now, he replied, and once you know that, everything changes. And here's the thing, Daniel's story isn't really about coffee or business or money. It's about something far more powerful. It's about the moment you stop wandering and start choosing a direction. Here's the truth that transformed Daniel's life, and it can transform yours too. You don't need to have your entire life planned out, but you do need clarity on something. One direction, one destination, one clear goal with a deadline. Remember these 3 principles. First, a goal without a deadline is just a wish. Someday I'll travel sounds nice, but it rarely happens. I will visit Thailand on March 15th, 2026 creates urgency, and urgency creates action. Second, You can't hit a target you can't see. Vague goals lead to vague effort. Clear goals create clear plans. Clear plans lead to deliberate action. And third, direction matters more than speed. You can work harder than anyone else, but if you're heading nowhere, you'll only get nowhere faster. It's far better to move slowly toward a meaningful destination than to sprint in circles. So here's my challenge to you, right now. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. Grab a piece of paper, write down one goal, just one. Something you will achieve in the next 90 days. Make it specific. Make it measurable. Give it a deadline. Not get in shape, but go to the gym 3 times a week for the next 12 weeks and lose 10 pounds by April 1st. Not learn something new, but complete an online graphic design course and finish 5 practice projects by March 20th. Not improve my relationships, but have one meaningful one-on-one conversation every week for the next 90 days with someone I care about. Write it down. Put it somewhere you'll see it every single day. And then, every morning, ask yourself one simple question. What's one small thing I can do today to move closer? That's how drifting stops. That's how momentum begins. And that's how ordinary days quietly turn into a meaningful life. Because the moment you commit to a real goal, a clear destination with a deadline, you stop floating through life. You stop reacting, and you become the one steering. Your life doesn't transform when you hope things will improve. It changes the instant you decide where you're going and take the first step in that direction. If this story sparked something inside you, do me a favor. Hit the like button and share this video with someone who's been drifting for far too long. Drop a comment below and tell me one goal you're committing to for the next 90 days. Let's keep each other accountable because progress is easier when you're not doing it alone. And don't forget to subscribe. I'll be back with more stories like this to help you stay focused, intentional, and moving forward. Until then, remember this: a compass only works after you choose a destination. Stop drifting. Start navigating.